As an entrepreneur, your biggest ROI is going to come off of your brain and your efforts. So get your business to the point where it can run without you, then find a way to duplicate that process.
Today, we're speaking with Dennis Meador. He is a legal podcast network guru. So he runs his existing podcast there. He helps other professionals, mostly lawyers, get their podcasts up and going. He has 38 employees, and he's the turnkey guy when it comes to podcasts. And you can see from his background, if you're on YouTube, he's a real pro. Here he has 20 years of experience in marketing and in the legal industry as well. And he launched his first business at 14 years old. Dennis, DM, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. And yes, I do go by DM. My initials, I'm a junior. And so I went by Dennis until I was 36 years old. And then one day I called my dad, who went by Randy as a kid, and then Doc as an adult. And I hear, "Hi, this is Dennis." And I was like, "Dude, you can't steal your name back at like 36 years." So I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to go by initials. And that's how it all came about.
Well, that's the beauty of life, right? You
Yep.
go after what you want, and you've definitely done that in your life. Maybe you could share a little bit about your backstory. I know it's a really cool upbringing as well, and then how you started into business at such a young age.
Sure. I'll just like give you the chapter titles, and so you can kind of see. First 7 years. That's when my dad was in the Air Force. I think I lived in 9 different states during that time. Dad being transferred here, there. He spent a year in Korea, and we lived another place, and we moved here, there, everywhere. And then at 8 years old, my parents got a divorce. From 8 to 13, I lived with my mom. They kind of went opposite directions in life. People will ask me sometimes, if there was an autobiography of your life, what do you think it should be named? And I it's very easy. Daddy's a preacher, mama's a prostitute, because that is the routes that they literally went. So my mom started dating like heroin and crack dealers and like gang leaders out of Chicago. Our house was a gang house, just a crazy, crazy situation. But what that taught me at a very young age was to be aware of not just myself and taking care of myself, but also I had a younger sister, and even my mom, to a lot of degree. I kind of learned to take care of her. So when we moved, then the next chapter, I move in with my dad and my stepmom, and have now there's 4 kids doubled up. There's me and my sister, and then my now brother and younger sister. And started my first business just basically taking my brother and his best friend. We went out to shovel walks. They hated knocking on the doors. I hate anything physical labor whatsoever. So it kind of worked out where I just said, "Tell you what, guys, I'll go knock on the doors, get the customers, and then you come and do the job." And then what I did is just wrote down who they were, and then we would do all their work. We went from snow shoveling to lawn mowing to leaf raking to paper routes. And so there's myself from 14 to about 16. I did this, and then a handful of like 12, 13, 14-year-old younger kids than me who would go out and do all the work. I would collect the money, give them half, keep half to myself, then go play basketball and buy the stuff I needed to with my life. Because my parents were basically like, you have a roof over your head, you're not starving, you have clothes on your back. That's what you get. You want more than that, you've got to get it. And so being, some 14-year-olds might look at that and think it was awful. But for me, I had already had that mindfulness of like paying attention and where to find money and how to make things happen. So next chapter, graduate high school, get married at 19. I was a pastor for 20 years, from 16 to 36, youth pastor, missionary, evangelist, all of those things. So I did that for about 20 years. And then I always had my own way to make money, because I didn't believe in like going into a small little church in the middle of nowhere and being like, "Hey, give me 50 grand a year." I was just paid my own way. And I'm just like, "Hey, I'm here because I believe I should be here, not because you're paying me."
Mm.
Um, Started a company when I guess it was about 21, 22, with a guy. We went from 0 to 4, almost 5 million in the first year with a 25% net profit margin. It was a product I had invented, a script that I had written, and a group that I had trained. And then I tried to kind of manage the company from Europe. My ex-wife was Romanian, built a house, lived in Romania. I know this is like a super abridged
Well,
version, but and then from there, just years as like, then I ended up getting into working with attorneys in marketing. Marketing's kind of been my thing since I was 18. I got a job while I was in college just selling ads, and it just kind of stuck. And then I started getting into business ownership in my early 20s, had some successes, and just continued to do that. I launched this business because I had niched down into attorneys in like 2003. So about 22 years. I've worked with the legal field, attorneys mostly. And I launched this December of 23. My ex business partner did not renew our 5-year agreement. I had taken the company from, again, less than a million, about 78 clients, to about 400 clients in 3-4 years, and from less than a million to about five, like I said, about 5 million a year.
what
And
business? What business with that was that? DM.
it was a I won't tell you the name of it, but I will tell you it
Yeah,
was an SEO
got
uh,
it.
website, for lawyers, which is what
Perfect.
everybody in digital marketing did, for about 10 years there. So yeah, did that and then launched this. May 1st was of last year was our official launch date. I got married at the end of April. And so then May 1st, we launched, me and my VA, who's been my VA for 5 years. I just, it's like a light bill. She's a part of my life from the Philippines. And started with me and my VA. And a year later, we had 150 clients, 38, 40 people. It's kind of hard to keep track because I have hosts and just different types of positions. We did do 7 figures our first year, which we were thrilled with because I guess that puts you in the top 4% of businesses, period, once you hit 7 figures. And yeah, we're growing like crazy. We're literally July. We're on pace to have our best month ever. Which usually, like a lot of marketing companies, especially with lawyers, they just shut down in July. So it's been a very exciting year, and a lot of backstory leading up to it.
So the existing business model now is it? Can you explain that just for the listeners to have a better understanding of
Sure,
what that model is?
we are a turnkey podcasting platform for the legal field. We have two main sets of clients. One is the attorneys themselves, and what we do is we use podcasting as the foundation for building an authoritative positioning platform as a marketing company, or I'm sorry, as a local company. So, for example, working with a criminal defense, like for example, our client in Chicago, criminal defense, David Schwenke, he's been with us almost since we've opened. And like, we have positioned him as when you're searching, when you're looking, and we're not talking about generic search, we use what's called query based search. Twofold reason for that: higher converting, less volume, but much higher converting. Plus, you can kind of drill down to your client profile with query
Mm.
based search. Plus, all of these new GEO, the new SEO that's based off of GPTs and all of that, and LLMs, they're all based off of query search. So, by building a query based search marketing platform, you're future proofing your marketing. And we already have attorneys who are being cited by AI because we put FAQ stuff and then their YouTube videos and their social. There's just a ton of stuff we do with it. It's very holistic. It's not just here's a podcast. Like, it's a YouTube show, podcast, shorts, marketing, everything.
Yeah, well, and what smart timing. It's interesting because my oldest is 17 now, and he's going into his final year in high school, and he's like, he's wondering what he should do, and it's like AI is the place to be. So, but with your background in SEO, it makes sense. It's like instead of SEO, like you're basically you're basically you want to structure you to be the go-to authority when it comes to when people plug in their search in chat gpt, which I haven't heard anybody else doing it, so you're well ahead of the curve with that, which is phenomenal.
Well, and it's now and future. That's the thing. Like, if
Yeah,
you can ever be in a position to do something that's successful now and sets you up for success in the future, that is like, especially in the digital marketing realm,
yeah,
that is like a renaissance time because all of your efforts
that's right.
are fruitful in the short and long term. So much
Yeah,
of marketing is like casting for someday, and or there's a lead right now, they need you. This kind of sits in the middle.
It's so good. Yeah. Cause I mean, less and less people are searching on Google and more are on these others. So love it. I mean, love the business model. So there's that. You had the SEO, and then there was a third company there as well. Just for the listeners, was it another marketing company that you had?
Well, there's the one that I had. There was 18. I also had a social agency. We called it Media Social. I lived in the Tulsa metro area, and there's a town called Broken Arrow, which is, like people that live there say, no, I live in Broken Arrow. But people outside of there say, oh, you live in Tulsa. There's every big city has that one town right
Yeah.
next to it that's decent size, but not as big, that wants its own identity. So I came
Got
up
it.
with this concept called Hey BA. And this is like 2010 to 2014 ish. And we launched a Facebook page within a week. We had 25,000 followers. Within 3, 4 months, we had hundreds of, like, we were managing people's social media. We did all these big, huge events. We did these giveaways. We were giving away $10,000 and $25,000 like gifts from all of our sponsoring like companies. It was fun. It was crazy. It grew so fast. And honestly, the only reason I stepped away is because my two oldest at the time were going into their teen years, and we could tell there was some issues going on. And my ex-wife now basically said, "You either close the business and help me with these kids, or
Yeah.
we're not together
Yeah.
anymore." So I felt like at the time I wanted to try to make it work, so we moved to Austin. But yeah, I've had that. I had a community guide game I did for a little while. It was a text message game where you would sit down at a restaurant, and those flip cards, right? What I did is I went and I bought the flip cards that go on the tables. And the first one would be like, win a free queso and chips, which is like a $7 value. Play this text game. And you would answer like 10 questions back and forth through text, but you were also opting in to 10 businesses to send you text message marketing.
So
And
good.
so just I've always just kind of had these little ideas that have seemed to do well. And you know, I think the biggest issue I've always had is in choosing my partners. That's why this business, I have no partner other than my wife, because she's 50% owner of everything now. But yeah, I think that I've been fortunate to see some pretty cool ideas and what I would call alternate monetization strategies of major ways of that people are doing things. So like in 10, 11, 12, 14, people weren't making money off Facebook. And they certainly, and so with this, like podcasting, if I told somebody, oh, my first year I made $1 million podcasting, they would be like, and they're a real, like a podcaster, they'd be like, how? Like, are you
Yeah.
like some big, like, legend that you started a podcast and everybody already, no, 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 no. We actually produce them for attorneys. We have in-house podcasts as well, but we produce them for attorneys.
So good. So I think that context is really good for the listeners to when you're speaking, you're coming from a place of authority. Now, if you were to give the listeners what your superpower is, if you could really hone in on that, what do you think that is? What your superpower is?
I've been told, and I know being in as a pastor for many years, I think I need to get better at this with marketing, because with marketing, I've always just talked to marketers or clients.
Yeah.
And so now doing a lot of podcasting about marketing, I really am making a conscious effort to learn how to talk about marketing without using like our industry speak, like ICPs and stuff like that. But I've traditionally been somebody that my superpower has been to take something that seems very complex and explain it in a way that makes it very simple.
Mm, yeah.
And for me, I think that, at the end of the day, that has been one of the best skill sets that I could have had in life for anything that I'm doing. You know, when I've got a 700 and or I'm sorry, 303 step process over 4 months for my clients, and we're doing 8 different things, and they're solo practitioner attorneys. If we call them up and really explain everything we do, why we do it, how we do it, they would just be like, let me think about it. Call me on the second of February and I'll probably sign up then, right? And so like it's always just simple, simple, simple. Get it. No, no, that's too complex. Make it simpler. So I think that's something that's very important to do, especially in marketing or the SaaS industry.
It's so true. I mean, we run two different businesses. There's a real estate brokerage where we help people buy and sell homes, and then we have a real estate investment firm where we buy these multifamily properties, we reno them, and we sell. in like 3 to 5 years. But it's so bang on what you said that you could speak in the inner dialogue of the industry, and it's like, yeah, does this make sense to you? And they're like, yeah, 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 it makes sense. But it didn't click. And then and the investment side as well, it's like whenever I've tried to go like too deep into the details way too soon, it's like, yeah, I get it. It's like, thanks for all this value, but there's just overwhelm sitting there, and then they don't make a decision versus taking one more step and making it simple. So that is so wise that you've been able to figure that out, and I think if you can explain that to business owners, I think that's like a huge value add if you can get them to understand that, to start speaking out to their clients, which is ultimately going to help convert more.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I was, like my core thing is, just being able to kind of, dig in, understand it. My core knowledge is sales process development. And so taking this like very, like I said, concept and then boiling it down where it just structures very simple, and then we make it a very simple decision at the end, one, two, or three. And then, that's how it works.
Yeah. So, okay, this is so good. There's a few things I want to talk about based on, your background, your history. I want to start when, I mean, you have 3 kids, so they're a little older now, right? But the question that I have for you, so I have 3 boys myself, 17, 15, and 13. And I think a lot of parents, they struggle with, how much they should do for them. And I think your background is so good. Because I mean, like, you
Yeah.
successful entrepreneurs, they're making a lot of money. It's like, should I buy a car? Should I pay for school? And so when you're young, you were 14, it was like, this is the basics and you have to figure it all out yourself. So now that you've been through that, what advice would you have for the listeners that are, they're successful, and they have kids growing up, and it's like, where's the line in regards to how much they should do, so that they don't want their kids to be entitled, at the same time they want to be able to give them, the best head start in life.
Right. What's funny is like so I have a 25-year-old, a 23-year-old, and a 20-year-old. So I've been going through this for about 7 years now. So I'll give you an example. I tried a few different ways, and I finally kind of came to a place where I feel like I have a good relationship and good boundaries with my kids without being a pushover to just hand them whatever they want. Because before, your kids will love you if you give them whatever they want, you
Yeah.
know? So with my son, what I did is I, at the time, was in corporate, and I just went and said, hey, like, we have an entry level position here. I know they have to usually go to college, but would you be willing to bring my son in? So I got him like about a 70 grand a year job in Austin, went to another person, got him an apartment, paid for his first 6 months for him to kind of learn to save up and do bills and all of that. And so I tried to get him started in life. And long story short, within 18 months or so, he ends up back on his mom's couch, part time barista. So then, like, he's mad at me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, dude, like, I got you this, did this, but okay, like, so then I did it again. I bought a house in Austin. So, but we still had a lease on an apartment. So I'm like, dude, you can move into this apartment. It was the pandemic. Well, I don't know how he got this, but somehow during the pandemic, it became a fundamental right that you have electricity, house, water. So you never paid a bill. And I was like, dude, like, what are you doing? And he's just
Yeah.
like, oh, no, these are like human fundamental rights, dad. You don't understand. They've changed everything. I'm like, no, you need to understand this. So it wasn't until I stepped back, and especially with my son, and not to say that sons, boys or girls are more resilient. He's the oldest. And so with him, I tried to give him a big jump start. And then my middle daughter, there were some issues. I tried to help her, but she wanted me to only help her on her terms. And she graduated high school early, and she wanted an apartment at like 16, almost 17, but I couldn't have a key to it. And blah. I was like, nope, that is not happening. So that didn't so with my youngest, tried again. I said, okay, instead of doing this, and this, I gave her I gave her a decent sum of money. And I said, you got enough to get an apartment, your first little car, nothing like, used car, a couple grand, whatever. You can get a car, you can get your apartment for a while, then get you a job, get settled in. 6 months later, money's gone. She spent it all with her friends on Uber Eats or whatever, you know. So I'm like, man, like, what do I do? So I told my kids at that point, I was like, you're all cut off. You're not getting a dime from me. And I spent the next 18 months where my kids were just like, because their mom was in their ear, my ex, and that's not always the
Yeah.
best thing. And I just am not having interaction with them. So I'd say that was part of the hardest time of my life as far as emotionally. Now I've had tragedy, trauma on the outside, but as far as like with that going on, but they started slowly coming back. And then when they came back and they came back with their hands out, all I simply said was, listen, from now on, if I give you money, it will be because you've earned it. So I have little odd jobs in my company that when my kids come to me for money, I'm like, yeah, go to this director. You've got his email. Tell him what you need to do. And so for me, that's helped. That's helped. None of them wanted to go to college. Maybe I wasn't the greatest example because I didn't go. I went to a unaccredited Bible Institute for 2 years in the middle of Ohio, West Virginia Valley. So I just fell into marketing. Like I said, started selling it at like 18, 19. So and the people I listen to and the people that I kind of like follow, Gary V, and there's this whole like sort of like geniuses don't need college sort of like mind frame out there. But none of my kids really, because I told them all, I was like, listen, if you go to school and have a part-time job, I'll pay all your house bills. You just need to have enough money to be able to like have pocket change, so you're not hitting me up for $200 here and there. Not one of them took me up on it. So
Mm.
now that I have that established boundary of you're an adult, I'm treating you as an adult. If you want something from me, just like any other adult, you're going to have to work for it. And I think that has, I mean, I have a more now than I have since, especially me and my ex split up 8 years ago. I have a better relationship with all three of my kids now, constantly texting, talking, and not just because of business, but outside of business. And I love yous, and all of that is back. And it was painful because boundaries are painful to put up. Because when you build that boundary, it's like people are looking at you like, wait a minute, what? That didn't used to be there. You used to be my teddy bear dad who all I had to do is come to you and say, Dad, I need money for this. And then you would just transfer in Zelle. Why can't you be that dad anymore? And then you build that boundary, and then they kind of stare at that boundary for a while. But eventually, if you have like that real relationship, they're going to walk around the wall and say, okay, I see the boundary. I'm sorry. Let's have a relationship.
That's so good. Because you're teaching them how the world works, right? And when people go out and they earn something themselves, they actually appreciate it more and they're going to hold on to it. They built the resiliency to be able to hold on to it versus just squandering. That's why you see like lottery winners, right? They win the lottery, most of them lose it, right? Because they haven't built up the grit or the muscle to be able to, one, I mean, appreciate it, but then two,
Same
to
with
actually,
sports stars.
yeah,
NBA, what is it? I just
right.
I just saw this
Yeah.
yesterday. Like the average NBA sports star is like bankrupt 3.5 years out of the league or something. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
No, 100%. So let me ask you this, and I know there were some questions sent ahead of time, but we're going off them a little bit
No
here,
worries. I'm with you.
and so you've been through a lot of hardship, like a lot of hardship, and I know there's a lot that you haven't even talked about on here as well. But what helps you through the hard entrepreneurs that are listening that have actually been through? They started a business, they understand what I'm talking about, but like about the hard times that a lot of people, they get out, they stop doing it, and they just kind of give up. What's helped you push through multiple times to be able to start a business, grow it, and basically do it again?
I have this like weird thing in my head where I see things as I believe they will be or should be, not as they are. And so when I get into the middle of something where everything's just so messed up, as long as I can still see where it will be, I'm not really bothered by that. And I mean, not to get too like, armchair therapist or whatever, but when because of the trauma period in my life, I actually am have less anxiety and am calmer when things are going crazy and wrong than when things are calm and simple and easy. I get anxiety during those times. Like
Mm,
literally, I'm like working with my therapist. I'm like, I don't understand. Like if things are crazy and people quit and this is happening and clients are saying this, I'm like calm
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
zen. But then when I'm like, oh, we just had our best week and our clients are caught up and I just made the hires and things are great. And then I'm just sitting here like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh,
What's coming? Something else
yeah.
is coming. Yeah.
So I think that ability to not be stuck in where I am, but to constantly see in my mind where we're going to be. And every blessing is a curse, right? Every strength is a weakness. Every Superman cape is our kryptonite. I forget what it is, but like at the same time, I do that with people. I see who they could be instead of who they are. And I get taken advantage of at times. But I would rather get taken advantage of occasionally and be the kind of person that helps and builds and gives and can be counted on than never get burned, but never be of any help or any, substance to anybody else's life.
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah, if I mean, it's right there in the Bible, right? If the people lack vision, they perish. And I think the vision side of it as an entrepreneur is a very, very important part to get very clear and get like a visual representation of what success looks like for you. So, for us on the real estate investment firm side of it, for me, it's like I actually see like we rebrand all of our assets to Ferris Residences, Ferris Residences Largo, Residences Georgetown, et cetera. And so I can actually see 100 different monument signs all around the Southeast. Like I can actually see it, right?
Yep.
And so when you can create pictures like that, and every business has their own picture that you can create of what that actually looks like, that future vision. I think that is a very powerful place to sit and to to actually see it and then feel really good emotions about that. And it's interesting how you start moving towards making that happen. And you nailed it in regards to where you're at today doesn't mean that's where I'm always going to be. It's like where I'm moving through the destination. Just like when you get in your car, eventually you're going to get to Disney World, right? You're driving it, you can
Right.
see Disney World, you're going to get there. You're not questioning along the way when you hit a roadblock or there's an ice storm, you need to stay in the hotel type thing, right?
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's really good, that insight there about pushing through the hard, because I mean that's where I think a lot of entrepreneurs need that encouragement, especially now with there's a lot of uncertainty out there, right?
Well, and I think the other thing that has encouraged me, I read this a few years ago because, when you have success young, and especially, that's an outlier event for the most part. And it really was in the mid 90s, right? But, I was a youth pastor at 16, pastor at 18, successful business owner in my early 20s, blah, 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 blah. When you have success that young, you start to think, okay, like if you would have asked me at 24, are you going to be a millionaire by 30? I'd have been like, are you kidding me? Is it going to take me that long? And then 30 came and went. And yeah, I've lived a comfortable life, but I wasn't a millionaire. And then it was like, okay. And then I thought for sure when my business took off in like my mid 30s again, because it was like early 20s. And then I kind of did some consulting and kind of because it was just traumatic, my first business closing with my business partner. Maybe we'll go into that, maybe not. But with with being able to, so I did that for a while, and just being able to come back and focus on that really helped me.
All right. Now, you start building the business and you're at a point now where you are, we'll just say, a little more seasoned. What are like the regular daily habits that you do that helps you be more productive on an ongoing basis? And maybe this is something that you're currently doing now or you have done in the past and you've seen really big success that the entrepreneurs out there listening can benefit from.
So I'd say one of the first things I do, and this is just taught to me about 10 years ago, is I try to, within 15 minutes of waking up, be in the sun and get sun on my eyeballs. I've told that significantly increases the production of some feel good chemical, can't remember which one. It significantly increases basically your mood throughout the day. So that's like a bare minimum. If you can get 15 minutes and get out there, get in the sun, maybe walk a little, not walk. I mean, the point is to get it in there and it does a reset. Now that helps me a lot. Now I'm fortunate that I'm in the part of my company where, like I said, I'm just kind of filling in things. Like I'm acting corporate marketer, but I just hired in the acting client success manager. She's just starting this week, so So I was acting both of those. But like I'm more at that point where I am doing what I teasingly tell my team is managed by walking around,
Mm,
just looking into my departments, looking at my, looking at notes. Just I'm literally just kind of going through things and seeing, well, what are customers complaining about? Okay, oh, I've heard this twice. Okay, look, where are we in the process? And so I'm just constantly number one empowering my directors, because my directs with 40, I have right now 3 directors with 40 people. Those 3 people I spend the most time with. Eventually, we'll have 5 directors once we're fully where we need to be. But I go to them and I'm like, how can I empower you? I'm looking at this, we see this problem, we're having this, like, let's solve this together. So I'm now spending a lot of time doing that. And I think that that is something that delegation is important. Micromanagement, not micromanaging is important. But with a remote company, you have to, I call it delegation with accountability. And so we always use the word accountability because it's like, wait a minute, it's not that I don't think you can or will do it, but I can't expect what I don't inspect. And so I can't be mad at you as a leader, because one of the principles I learned young as a leader is everything rises and falls on leadership. If my business fails, no one's going to say, well, his director of marketing just wasn't very good. No
yeah.
one says that. They
Yeah.
say, yeah, his business closed.
Yeah. That's right.
So like I understand that. And so I really apply that in my business to make sure I understand. And then once I have people that I trust, and especially when they keep exceeding my trust, where I'm like, hey, take care of this. I already took care of that. Okay. And then they have that pattern of doing that, then I can back off, just read their reports and leave them alone. Now I know I can focus in other areas, because sometimes it's not even a lack of them wanting to do right. Sometimes it's they don't quite, I didn't quite articulate my vision for what I
Yeah.
needed from them. And so it's not trying to catch them. And I'll tell them that. I'm like, listen, like I have a high tolerance for failure. Like I fail a bunch. So why wouldn't I allow my team to fail? As long as it isn't failure because they didn't do their job and they didn't try, I'm never going to penalize somebody for trying. Like that's essentially what I do with my team. So I think that that's what brings success. Success is about empowering others.
Mm,
It's not everyone thinks success is purely a self-discipline thing. Self-discipline is important, but I know a heck of a lot of self-disciplined people who are not successful. And I know a heck of a lot of successful people who are not healthy. So that's not or not self-disciplined, but they're very successful. So I think empowering others is probably, to me, in my opinion, empowering others with an accountability layer to get them to have ownership and take ownership in what they do is the best thing you can do, especially like I said, me being remote. I have to find people that want that, need that, and then I just empower them and step back, and they just report with me once a week and boom.
but you nailed it. And companies, they get to a point where you eventually it's all about when you need work done, you hire great people to do the work. And then you're more so you're seeing the vision and making sure all the pieces are connected together and you're moving in the right direction, building culture. And it's like beating the drum. Here's where we're going,
Yep.
guys. Remember, here's where we're going, right? uh,
Yep.
I love that. And I think that's so true that just because you're really disciplined, you're doing all the right things and you're doing all the work. Well, if you're not working through other people, you're gonna hit a ceiling. That happened to me when I was actually, it was my wife and myself when I started back in 2007. I did like 38 sales and I couldn't do any more. Like it was just, I could maybe get a few more sales, but I was like maxing out because I was doing everything.
Yep.
Joanne was doing the marketing side of it. And then we hired somebody and then boom, we went to 100 sales. And that's where it was like, I'm all in on this. So you get the right person, you can do a whole lot more and you can actually have better customer service.
Another principle that we really apply in that area is I try to make sure in my company that people are only doing the things that only they can do. Because what happens is you hire in somebody and they're a higher end, earner, and yet you look at their workflow and you're like, why'd you spend 3 hours on a spreadsheet yesterday? You could have given that to one of our VAs. They could have worked on it, and you could have worked on the tasks that only you could do, because the VAs can't do that for you, but they can do the spreadsheet for you. So that is a big thing in our company, because I'll find somebody like a director, and I'll be like, did you make this spreadsheet? And they're like, because they know, like with me, like that's my biggest pet peeve is like, why are we making spreadsheets instead of,
Yeah.
talking to customers and moving the bar forward?
Yeah, that's so good because I guess the response to that would be, well, I wanted to, I could just whip it up quick, and I didn't want to spend any of the company's money to hire somebody else to outsource it. But what would you say to that if somebody came back to say,
We
no,
have
no, like,
VAs, their whole
yeah,
job is to support other people in the company. Like literally, we have one here in Belize. I have my VA in the Philippines. So we have, every division has one or two what we just kind of call catch all. They're usually offshore, but they can catch all. They monitor emails, they enter into the CRM, they do all that little stuff that takes up our time but really doesn't move things forward. And so that's why I'm saying, like, I empowered our business model to make sure that it's done that way. I don't have to outsource it. It's like, why didn't you give that to Jenny? Why didn't you give that to Gianni? Why didn't you give that to, so and so?
yeah, that's really good. So, how do you keep the most critical activities top of mind for, and do you sit down with each of the, do they all have a scorecard, each of your employees, and said, okay, here are the main, your key responsibilities that are your highest
Every
and best use
Monday,
for your time?
yeah, every Monday we look at what I call the metrics that matter. So don't bring me a report with metrics that don't matter. And then I show them what metrics matter to the company. How many clients are active in less than a month in this? How many clients are complaining right now just because of the process? How many people, and so every one of my people, and what I do is I like to go into their department, work with them for a while, figure this out, and then I can step back and go, okay, now I know what I need from this department. So every department I've been a part of at some time or another, whether it's just been a few projects or I ran it when we were small. And so now I know these are the most important metrics. So I usually, Monday morning, I have 2 back-to-back meetings, meet with my sales team, get them, hey, you guys are awesome, you're the best, sales meetings. And so we go through that, and then right after that, I go with all my directors, and I just go, all right, go ahead. Where are your numbers? Okay, and where are we at in this project? Where are we at on this project? Okay, and what about this client? Okay, and what about? Okay, great. Boom. All right, you can go. Thanks. Next, and then I just kind of go through whoever's in charge of the different departments. We look at their metrics that matter, and that's how we do that. And then the other thing I do is every month, the beginning of the month, I do a vision casting meeting with my whole team, because there's 40 people spread across the world. It's very easy for remote workers to feel like they're working in a vacuum. And so although we have like a Discord server and we use it and do gifts and, joking back and forth, and I try to really, use that to create like a sense of togetherness. When we get 40 people on that Zoom and everyone's just like, cause they'll meet with me, maybe they'll be in 2 or 3 other people in meetings. So to them, it becomes narrow. Then I kind of cast it out and then I say, all right, this is what we just accomplished. This is how it's going to help us accomplish this is where we're at for our goal for the year. Everybody knows in 3 years, I want to be here. 5 years, I want to be here. 7 years, I got to be here. So now that we're here, this is the progression that we need to get to prepare us to go to this level. And we're always looking back and looking forward and moving and moving and moving.
That's really good. You're basically, you're connecting the dots for everybody and what their activities are doing, or they're contributing to the overall bigger picture, and the journey that you're on together is what you essentially
Absolutely.
described. Yeah.
And I also, what I do is and this is something we're in the midst of. It's a pretty big undertaking, but as far as figuring out how it all goes, but we're in the process of basically doing, it's not a profit share, but when a client renews, because we do 4-month contracts. So when they renew that second 4-month contract, everybody who touched that client gets a small bonus. Now you got to think about a guy who does videos. He probably is touching, 50, 60, 100 clients a month. So, it's going to equate to roughly maybe $300-500 a person to different people throughout the company. But again, if you think of somebody in Pakistan where they're making $800 a month, they can get a $500
Yeah.
bonus from their clients being happy. So that way, everybody doesn't look at their work as work. They look at it as clients.
Mm,
Then they look at it as clients that need to be kept happy,
yeah.
because it's hard to make people understand that the real boss is not me, it's our clients. And so when I remove myself from the equation of how they make more money, and they see that it's based off the clients, now they think the client is boss, which is who it is. And then they take that extra step, because it's like, when the boss is there, you might slip something by him. But with clients, they're going to look at their stuff and be precise and have expectations.
Yeah. No, aligning their income, I think, is really smart, and the incentives around that as well. Really smart how you're running your company. Uh, so here's a changing gears a little bit, going to the marketing side. I know that's your one of your key strengths that you have and what you've always done from the beginning. And I love the story with your your brothers. You went and got the business, did what a lot of people don't like to do, and they just they did the shoveling, right? And that's essentially what you've been doing. You've been having a vision and doing your whole life, which is I love
Yeah.
it. Now, for the listeners out there like that don't have that marketing prowess that you do, that you have, what advice would you have for them to, we'll just say, if they wanted to come out swinging, they have this business idea, and they say, you know what, you say, I'm totally blank canvas here. Okay. You tell me, here are kind of the main steps to do in order to, we'll say, blow up the business. What advice? And I know that there's many things you got to do, but just like the main things, if you did these, this is like the 20% that'll give you 80% of the results. If you do kind of these main things to be able to get, more known in the marketplace.
Absolutely. I think it's a very easy answer. Most marketing is, look at me, look at us, look at how awesome we are, look at what we do, look at how long we've been doing it. Most marketing emanates from the person outwards and hoping to attract people to them. However, I am a firm believer in the concept of authoritative positioning, which reverses the marketing funnel. It starts with the client and what is called in the industry the ideal client profile. So you base your marketing on them, not on you. And when you base the marketing off of your end user, and you're answering their questions and you're giving them clarity on whatever your product is and how it can benefit them and how it can solve problems or whatever, and everything's about them, not you. Number one, everybody's attracted to it being about me. That's a much more attractive proposition just in general. But beyond that, it puts people where it's not just, oh, I'm looking at a logo and I'm looking at marketing, but I'm relating to this brand and I'm seeing and they're answering questions and they're interacting. So now the old know, like, trust, you've got the know and the like through the marketing. And then when they walk through the door, it's just trust. Because if people aren't buying from you based off of know, like, trust, then you're a commodity, in which case it's only based off of your pricing that people will want to work with you. So that's what authoritative positioning does, is two things. One, it puts them 2/3 of the way, really two and a half, probably 85% of the way to a purchase. Because all
Mm,
they're doing when they meet with you after they've been, you've educated them and you've made the marketing about them, usually that meeting is just confirming trust, because they wouldn't meet with you if they didn't trust you, period. So it's more like, okay, I see who this guy or this lady is online. Let me just make sure before I sign something with them that they're the same offline. Now I say that, but millennial and down are completely comfortable with signing away their life with somebody they met on the internet. So it can definitely be done just via like demos and things like that. Doesn't have to be, but even then, like, you still have to have that moment where they're willing to trust you.
that's really good insight. For the listeners, if there's lack of clarity of who their ideal client or core client or avatar client, their highest valuable client, Okay, they're not sure who that is. It's like because you hear it all the time. It's like, well, I got this client and this client and this client. It's like, whoa. Like, what would you say, or what advice would you give them to be able to like really hone in on, your most valuable client, or do you recommend, more than one?
I mean, I think that you start with one, but then you're open to others that you didn't realize. So, for example, my ICP when I started Ideal Client Profile was law firms, 1 to 10, locally focused, consumer facing, that want to differentiate themselves. I want to be the authority for criminal defense in my marketplace, the authority for divorce. I thought that was who all my clients were going to be. Then all of a sudden, we had like nationwide, very niche practices come to us and say, "Can you help us?" Now, those have become some of our most successful clients. Now, I'm not going to brag too much because one guy we signed in December, he was a tariffs expert and attorney. So obviously his content blew up and he got clients. Another guy, he works with federal employees on unemployment. So again, as far as everything that's happening in the country this year, he blew up, got tons of clients from it. So those weren't my ICP, but they came to me and I said, "Well, we can do this for you. Typically, this is what can it work for me? I think it can." And actually, in a niche practice and a niche subject matter, it can really do well. But if you have to, here's what I would say with finding your ideal client profile, going back to just finding that core one. Number one is you want to look at your most profitable type of client. Number two, you want to look at friction with that type of client, because friction is the thing that burns down businesses, whether it's internally or externally. That's why I always tell my company, my whole company team can say it to you: better, faster, less friction. That's what we're looking to do every day. Get better, get faster, do things with less friction. We want our clients to have a better product delivered faster and less friction, from them to have to be a part of it. So you have to look at the profitability of the client. You have to look at the bandwidth that the client takes. Let me give you an example. And again, this is a generalization,
Yep.
not an accusation. But one of the big reasons I ended up working in white collar is I discovered very quickly as a young entrepreneur that collecting from blue collar was very time consuming and frustrating. And I just, roofing and construction and plumbing and da 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 da. It just seemed like I was fighting with these guys all the time with my businesses when I was young. But yet I've got all these white collar, insurance, mortgage, lawyers, blah, blah, blah. And, they're just paying what they need to pay every month, just not even, they just don't, it's their bill. It's like a light bill. And so on paper, maybe you could have looked at my books and said, "Wow, you really make profit from contractors." But I would have said to you, no, because they take up an unfair amount of my bandwidth. About 90% of my collection team's time is spent on 15% of our clients, and 90% of those are, blue collar. And again, this is a generalization. I'm not saying every client that we had that was blue collar was a bad one. I'm just talking about big picture look back percentages. But so again, the profitability and the amount of bandwidth and the amount of, friction that they cause, are they hard to deal with? We get first of the year, I got rid of about 20% of my clients because those 20% were taking up almost all of my client success team's time on very small things. And so we sent them an email and I said, "This is da da da. I'm exercising the right to stop our," and I had some of them so mad at me, threatened to take me to court. Like, "You're going to take me to court for ending a contract with you that it says in it that I can end at any time?" Like, so you have to be protective of your team's time and of your company's time with clients. It's not just, let me just take anybody. You have to not be afraid to fire clients. You have to not be afraid to look at, honestly, not just how much money they're handing you, but the bandwidth it takes to keep them happy.
So good. And thanks for that example there. I think that really helped give context for the bandwidth point. Now, once the entrepreneurs they find this ideal client, and so they know who it is. Okay, now you said build authority and attract people, which I love that. I mean, that in today's market, I think is so smart and so important. What are some of the things that you do for your clients? I mean, that's right up your alley. That's your business, right? So,
Hmm.
what are some of the main things that you do to help build authority and advise your clients to take action on in order to be this magnet for this ideal client?
Well, we use the podcast as kind of the foundation for the ecosystem that we build for them. And the podcast is not a Joe Rogan, hey, did you hear about this sort of like podcast? They are 17 to 21 minutes, 7 to 10 questions about a very specific subject. What to do when you've been in a motorcycle accident and it's partially your fault, but not completely, whatever, right? And then there's about a 20-minute video that just we provide a host for them. The host asks the question to the attorney. The attorney's got the question ahead of time. Plus, they're asked these types of questions every day. So they sit there, they answer the questions, and then we take that content and we create FAQ stuff for their website. We create shorts and reels and small videos for YouTube. We put it on YouTube. We put it on Apple. Put it on like 25 different networks. We put it on 10 different social media outlets. For just contextually speaking, our once a month show requires 30 minutes of our client's time. We are able to put out one show a month, 30 days of content on up to 10 outlets, and we place it all for them, as well as 2 to 3 pages of FAQ content on their website.
Hmm.
Then, if they do twice a month, everything just doubles. An hour of their time, double, double, double. They do weekly, doubles again. 2 hours a month, double, double, double. So by the time we have clients that we do a weekly podcast, we're posting 3 times a day on 10 outlets, 30 days a month. So you do the math. So what? 3 times a day, that's 30. 30 times 30, that's what, 900?
Yep.
Am I wrong? Okay.
No, you're
So
right.
we're posting 900 times on every social media outlet that we can connect them to, including things like Pinterest, including Twitter, including um, TikTok. Last year, when we started this product, 3 pieces of content per show. Now 30. Why? Because what I've learned is, and I knew this, a lot of professionals think that a marketing program is a marketing ecosystem.
Mm.
So the mistake that they make is they go try this for 6 months, and then they try that for 3 months, and then they try this for a year, and everything's trying it. Instead of understanding that when you build an ecosystem, then you're not hoping for one source. Imagine if you said, I'm going to plant a garden, and all you did was plant a tomato plant in the middle of a big, huge acre. People be like, that's not a garden. That's a freaking tomato plant in the middle of an empty acre. And you'd be like, yeah, but that'll grow, I think, and I'll get fruit off of it. It's like, no, you got to plant corn, you got to plant beans, you got to plant. I'm from Iowa for a few years, so I got to talk in farmer talk, although I lived in kind of a city. But you've got to have a diversity in that thing, and it's the same thing. People want to eat off their marketing, but they've got one freaking tomato plant in the middle of an empty acre. And it's like you're not diversifying. You're not. So, what we have tried to do is become a diversified marketing ecosystem so that we can help our clients be successful in spite of their own knowledge of marketing or lack thereof.
Well, and time and investment, and so what I like what you're doing as well is the content that you're providing is very relatable, very valuable for their core client, and there's not a lot of fluff in there, so people can go there, they can get information, and it positions them as the authority, as the go-to, and they can get it very quickly and then get off, and it doesn't take a lot of the time of your client as well. So it's really smart.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, and it's funny because I tell people, I'm like, listen, like I like podcasting. I did a podcast, and now like podcast and a YouTube show, they're kind of like synonymous anymore. Like, although you can't, if you just have a YouTube show, you can't say you have a podcast and vice versa. But most podcasts are on YouTube as well. Um, like the podcast itself is more just the attorneys have been told at all of these different like conferences and things, you need a podcast.
Mm.
And then they're just like, so this is how we market now. Okay, well, how do I do this? And then we call them, we're like, hey, you ever thought about a podcast? And they're like, actually, yeah, I've been trying to figure this out. And we're like, oh, well, you could do once a month, twice a month, 4 times a month. It costs, and I always tell people we charge hundreds, not thousands a month. We do a 4-month contract, so we don't lock them in forever. Because I would rather prove and keep my clients than lock them into something and have them pay me for 8 months while they're cussing me out every month, you know. So, but yeah, I mean that's typically what we do with the process is just try to make it super super simple for them, but yet when they see everything that's done and is going around, and the other thing is when I put that FAQ page on their page and then they start killing it with SEO, guess who gets the credit? When they start seeing people watching and they start seeing their reels hit 2-3,000 and then they get a couple calls off of it, guess who gets credit? So it's like, they can see the direct results of this sort of ecosystem around them.
Yeah, so good. I love it. I love it. And you have a track record of success in your other businesses as well. And so this is where now it's just rinse and repeat all the key learnings you found a market. I love it. I love it. So let's transition a little bit now to the investing side. And so through the years, you've made some really great income. You've helped clients make some really great income as well. What investing advice would you give to the entrepreneurs that are out there listening, and they've been investing in their business, so they're growing, and there's all these investments out there. What's been beneficial for you? What are some maybe a key lesson that you've learned that you can share with the entrepreneurs to be able to make great investing decisions?
Well, I think there's a twofold answer to this. So the first part would be if you're in a partnership, marriage, whatever, with another person, you need to find out what their threshold for comfort is while you're living on the edge. And the first thing you should do is get them to their comfort threshold. Because if you can get them to their comfort threshold where you're like X amount in the bank, X amount in 401k, whatever it is, if you can get them to their comfort level, then instead of saying, you're going to fall off that ledge, you better not fall off that ledge or we're all going to be in trouble, that person's going to come up and support you. So that's the first piece of advice that I would give, because entrepreneurs, I don't know how else to put this, but I've always been able to make money happen from a very young age. You know what I mean? Like I don't worry about money, not because I have $1 billion, but it's just like, I can make it. I mean, I spent a year and a half in bed. I had a nervous breakdown because I used to work from 18 to 36. I worked 20 hours a day, full-time pastor, full-time business, full-time, other stuff, like sometimes 2 businesses and a pastorate and blah, blah, blah. So, like I believed every minute must be monetized. That's what I used to tell myself in my 20s and my early 30s till I ended up in bed for a year and a half. But even in that year and a half, I was able to take about 1 day a week, maybe 2 afternoons. I came up with a little concept, a little company. I hired about 3 Filipino people, and I still made like $150, 200 in 2 afternoons a week. So I don't like, to me, I don't worry about money because I know it will flow to me and I see it as an energy source.
Yeah.
But I could do a better job of acknowledging my partner's need for security, or I could have in the past. So I think there's that. And then investing beyond just your security investing for yourself or your partner or whatever. Now you have to decide where you want the risk to lie. And what I mean is this: there's your safe money, and then there's your money you invest that I could lose it, but I'm okay with losing it. High risk, high reward stuff, right? It could have been crypto a couple of years ago. It could have been, NFTs if you're younger and you were into that during the pandemic. It could be, higher risk bonds, whatever it is, higher risk stocks, whatever. But finding those things that are higher risk, higher reward, and just basically saying, okay, I'm going to take X money, I'm going to put it in that, and then I'm going to take Y money and I'm going to put it safe. And I think it's all about finding out your tolerance of more safe, less risk, or more risk, less safe. And
Mm.
then inventing into that. And then as an entrepreneur, your biggest ROI is going to come off of your brain and your efforts. So get your business to the point where it can run without you, then find a way to duplicate that process. For example, with our business, we have the Legal Podcast Network. But I own two other domains, the Professional Podcast Network and the Medical Podcast Network. So once we have scaled to probably about 300 clients, we're about 150 now, so we're about halfway there. And I know all my internal systems are right, my CS works right, my retentions, it's over 90%, but the people that are leaving, I'm still not happy with why they're leaving. So I'm not like hiring more people to grow yet. But then once we create the infrastructure for the Legal Podcast Network, as far as our internal standard operating procedures and policies and everything, then all I have to do now is launch a new website, the Professional Podcast Network, brand that, and I've already got the whole business underneath it. And then I just hire people that can relate and work with those people. Then I can just start teaching those people. Because yes, I've niched down on attorneys, but I've worked with business owners in marketing forever. And then the same thing for medical. So so you have to ask yourself, is the high risk you, or is the high risk some other sort of investment that you're going to just throw money at and stand back and hope it goes 5,000% in 3 days because it was 0.0001 and then Elon Musk tweeted something and now it's worth a whole dollar and we're all billionaires.
So good. All right. Well, we're into the rapid fire. Time's been flying by here with you. It's been a great conversation. I final three questions, and we're going to wrap this up. You ready for the rapid fire part?
Let's go.
All right. So I'm a big reader, love reading. Curious, which book for you has made the biggest impact in your career?
Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week.
That's good.
Outsourcing your life changed my life in my 20s. I accomplish more, make more, and have way less stress in my life because I learned that principle.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, it challenges this paradigm that I have to work 80 hours a week, right? That's really solid.
There's two things in there, and he does that other thing where he's like basically seasons, where you go in and you just intensely build a business for a
Yeah.
year, and then it's built, and you back off, and you live off, you live off that fruit, and then you go live your real life. I kind of do a little bit different. I kind of balance it. I kind of day to day. That's why I live on an island. So it's like Friday night. I tell my wife, I'm like, babe, like I know sometimes we get frustrated on this island because we don't have the food we're used to or whatever, but like here we are sitting, this guy's bringing us a pina colada, or in the ocean, or sitting back and I'm like, people save up all year to do what we do on a Friday night when we're bored. Like, come on. Like, we need to be like in this moment and enjoying it.
Okay. Second question is, so three different words that people that know you best, how would they best describe you as in 3 words?
So I put this out on social just for fun, because I was just like, we know what our own self perception is usually pretty skewed. So the 3 words, and I had I don't know, 8 or 10 people answer it, but the 3 words or concepts that came out of it from the people I asked through my social media was authentic, driven, and organized.
So good. All right. So, final question. We didn't get to it, but I'm really curious as to what advice would you have going through some maybe not so great partners in your past? What advice would you have for the listeners when they are selecting a partner?
I love this question. Um, do not go home with your partner on the first night. Date them. And I mean this figuratively, but how many people take a partner, and I've been guilty of the same thing, so don't get me wrong, sit down for 1 or 2 meals, talk about this and that back and forth, look at each other's, LinkedIn, and they got some good referrals, some of the same, but okay, let's do it. You will spend probably, especially during the first part of your business, whether it's 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, depending on what industry you're in, but you're going to spend the next year to 5 years more time, more emotional energy, more ups and downs with this person than probably your own life partner, spouse, whatever. So spend time with that person and one of the ways I suggest it is I suggest doing a small shorter term project with them that can dovetail into what you're doing. So maybe a 3-month project to where you say, okay, here's what I propose. We're gonna do this 3-month project. You're gonna be over this because that's your core strengths. I'm gonna be over this. At the end of it, we're gonna sit down, see how it worked out. And if it works, then we'll tack that onto the business we're starting. If it doesn't work, we built something together. We can both get something out of it and we walk away. So that's my biggest, like, just know we spend so much time finding a spouse usually. I mean, but yet this person who we're going to make our living with, we just do a cursory search on them.
It's so good. It is so important. It is you're right. I mean, and once you get, I mean, the breakup part of it, you build a business as something valuable, and it really is like a divorce, pretty much. It's like it's hard. How are you going to break the company up, right? And I've just seen it, and it's interesting. And I'm just going to add to that as well. When you're going through this trial, it's so easy to be like filtering through like the love bug
Mm-hmm.
glasses, like everything is
Yep.
perfect.
Rose-colored glasses. Yep.
Yeah, rose-colored glasses. But the reality is you want to find, if there's something small, like you go for lunch and they're treating the server really poorly, or they rub somebody, or they made this negative comment about something like that stuff. Watch for those little details, because that is just like a fraction of what's coming down the pipe. And you take those glasses off, right? Because down the road you look back and you're like, oh man, how did there were signs back there. I just missed it. Right.
Well,
I was like the rose covered glasses, as you mentioned, right?
my former business partner, he said to me, people will tell you exactly who they are very quickly if you just listen and believe. How many people say, I know I can be difficult? They're difficult. Like, they told you they're difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I'm really picky. I know I'm
Yeah.
not good with math, but I can keep books. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like when somebody tells you something negative about themselves, believe them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously no one's perfect, but when they give you that warning sign, you need to take it and listen to it. And like you said, whether it's subtle clues or just listening, people, that's why I said more than once, do it a couple times, because people will tell you who they really are.
So good. So, DM, what's the best way that the listeners, if they want to reach out to you, whether they're in Canada or the US, what's the best way that they can reach out and connect and potentially hire you as for their business?
So probably the best way right now is through our website, thelegalpodcastnetwork.com. Um, I I don't know how, and I don't know why. I've been on LinkedIn 17 years. I've grown. I started just using it for the last year, so I've grown from like 1,500 to 4,000 contacts, and I've really like went into the top 1%. Blah blah. All of a sudden, like 3 days ago, my account's gone, and so I'm like, I used to just tell her, go to my LinkedIn, go to my LinkedIn, go to my LinkedIn. So I'm appealing the process. I'm hoping I get it back. Otherwise, I got to start all over. The good thing is, I made money way before I used LinkedIn. I can make money without it. When you're multi-channel, when one door closes, there's still 7 more open. So I want it to be in place, but it's not going to shut down my business if it isn't. It'll just help if it is.
Right on. Well, DM, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show here. It was a real pleasure speaking with you.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Right on. And thanks for listening, guys. If you like the channel, go ahead and share and subscribe, where we are building a community of up and coming entrepreneurs. And if you are thinking about investing, you can't find any really good deals out there, go to fulloutinvesting.com and find a little bit more about our full out investing process. And we do have a sample deal on there that you can check out as well. Just remember, guys, one of the fastest ways to build your wealth is to build your business and to invest in real estate. I love you guys.